And we should mention Todd Eccles joining us as well from Patriot Defense, and as he does on Friday mornings. And we're talking firearms during this segment of the program. And remember, uh, Todd and I will try, Todd more so than me, will try to answer your questions. But even if we can't, we know there's someone in this audience who certainly can if one comes up. It's 736-0300 is the number. First of all, welcome back.
Well, it's good to be here. This is my favorite place to be on Friday mornings.
Mine would be a diner, but that's especially one with sourdough toast.
There you go.
But I can't mention my favorite because I don't think they're spending any ad dollars here yet. Speaking of business, for people, let's right off the top tell people if they'd like to. You've got a class 2 weeks from tomorrow coming up.
Actually, I've got a class on May 20th, and then I've got 2 more classes actually. Because now that I'm going to use my own range, I can actually schedule way ahead of time. I've got June scheduled up. I got June one on June 10th and one on June 17th. And to get a hold of me, if you're interested in that class, that was the class for the Idaho Enhanced Permit, obviously. You can call me, text me, area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. You can find me on Facebook under Patriot Defense. Shoot me a message, like the page. Those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
I was going to say, people out there who have been following your Facebook page can also take a look at some of your videos now too.
Yeah, yep. I do I podcast. Okay, I do podcasts, and so I post each podcast up there. Now I've got one podcast that I actually cut on Monday. I just haven't actually downloaded it or uploaded it to the internet yet. So I'll get that done hopefully today. But yeah, you can. I post all my podcast episodes there, and I actually just got the final piece of equipment I need for right now. And I'm going to start doing interviews now. I've got everything I need, and I just got to put some stuff together. I've got a bunch of interviews lined up, so hopefully you can tune into the podcast. You can listen to someone besides just me sit there and talk into the microphone. So it'll be fun. You can find me on on my Facebook page. You can find me on YouTube, and you can find me on iTunes under the Patriot Defense Podcast.
We were just talking off air and about how most people out there who take the class start with one firearm, but eventually we won't call it a collection, but firearms have different uses and different needs. Some people hunt, some people have self-defense issues. But for instance, if you were out walking, let's say you went up into Idaho County and you went into the backwoods,
Right.
somewhere like that, and you're wandering around, there's a time where you might have a need for a shotgun. There's another time where you might have a need for a rifle. There's a time you've got a need for a good pistol. Uh, all of these things have different uses. All can be used in self-defense. Some can be used for hunting. Some can be used just for recreation.
Right.
But that's one thing that we don't get into a lot, but is that variety. Most people who actually develop an interest in this eventually have that variety at home.
Oh yeah, you buy one, you need to buy another one. But yeah, no, there's all different kind. I mean, you can hunt with a shotgun. You can actually do home defense with a shotgun. Obviously, you can't still carry a shotgun, and then you have your rifles.
Depends on how tall you are.
Exactly. And then you have your rifles. You got your AR-15s, which they're just fun to go out. Sporting type rifles, fun to go out and shoot. You can use those for home defense. You can actually hunt with an AR-15. It's legal in the state of Idaho to do so. If you wanted like a bolt action rifle, you can get one of those. Those are good for shooting varmints, hunting, that kind of thing. And then you got your handguns. You got your revolvers. You got your semi-autos. Now, I'm more of a handgun guy. I probably got, I don't know. My kids shoot shotguns now too, so they've each got their own. But I got quite a pile of handguns, and I end up buying. Don't let my wife hear this. I end up buying handguns that I probably don't really need, to be honest with you. But it's what happens. You find something you like, and you look for another one, and you look for another one. But even though I have multiple handguns, I was thinking about this actually this morning. I work out a lot. I do a lot of CrossFit, and I'm preparing for a Spartan race in June. And so I'm kind of upping my running a little bit. And I started to do some like trail running, and I've been going down to Durkee's Lake and doing this. And so as I'm out and about trail running, the full size gun I have, it's really hard to carry with me. So I've got a smaller gun at home, which I never said I'd carry a small gun, but I'm thinking it might be the ticket for strapping on, getting a different holster, a tighter fitting, maybe a belly band or something, and carrying this firearm while I'm jogging. I think it'd be fantastic. So I may be in the market for for another holster here real quick.
We've got a caller with us, and I do want to point out telephone number 736-0300. We're at 911 at 61. Todd Eccles for Patriot Defense and Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, it's kind of along the same line of what you're talking about. I walk a lot, especially now that the weather's getting warmer. I walk a lot at night, and I have my cane, which I'm quite proficient at using as a weapon. But my children and grandchildren are worried about me and saying, "Why don't you carry, Graham?" And I just wonder, even if I do, and I have been confronted a few times, what are my rights if someone confronts me when I'm out walking like that?
It depends. If you're protecting yourself, if you're in fear for your life, and if you're out walking and you have a cane, obviously there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to take you that could cause you harm. It sounds like. So if you are defending yourself, you have every right to defend yourself by whatever means you deem necessary. Okay. Now, if they're just coming up to you saying, "Hey, how do I get to so and so's place?" or they're asking for directions, obviously you can't attack them and shoot them dead in the street.
Oh, no, I've
Right.
been too many situations where I've had to use a gun to defend myself. I'm wise enough that way, but I'm just wondering how fine that line is between when they say, "Oh, well, we weren't going to hurt her," but they've already struck at me.
If they've already struck at you and you can tell law enforcement when they show up why you were in fear for your life, why they were a threat to you, which in your situation and you, I believe that would be probably pretty easy for you to do, especially out walking, with a cane and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I think you would, as long as you can explain that to law enforcement when they show up, why you felt they were a threat and why you did what you did, I think you're going to be good to go.
And be sure I don't shoot them in the back.
Well, right,
Right,
and
like they're running away. Okay.
well, we laugh about that, and
I know,
when
but
people say shoot them in the back, that's as long as they're not, if they're running away, if they're leaving when you
yes,
pull your firearm or weapon or whatever it is
yes,
you have,
no,
then you leave them alone.
absolutely.
But
Okay.
you can actually shoot someone in the back if it's a way to stop them from harming someone else or harming yourself, if that's the only
Oh,
target of opportunity that you have.
that was going to be my next question
Yes.
in another situation. And very quickly, the gun that I would like to carry doing this, I do not have a holster for. Is it legal to carry that in a belt?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
You can
all right.
in the state of Idaho, you can open carry legally.
As long as
Um,
it can be seen,
And
it's
yeah,
okay.
and actually, right now in the state of Idaho, since they passed constitutional carry last July 1st, it went into effect.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually conceal carry without a permit.
Oh,
So you
okay.
could put it in a bag, you could put it in a holster on your belt,
Uh-huh.
anything like that.
Okay, well, if it was cooler and a jacket covered it up, I'd still be okay then.
Yep,
All right.
you'd be fine. Yes,
Thank you very much.
no
Enjoy
problem.
your program so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to thank her for the call. And we had a caller some months ago who mentioned he likes to cycle a lot,
Yeah.
and he's on a bicycle, and he was talking about the challenges of carrying in that situation and how you do it. Yesterday, when I had Keith Thompson in from Idaho State Police, he mentioned cyclists and motorcycles are out on the roads now and on the streets.
Yep.
The question then becomes in both those situations, because especially on a bike where your legs are churning constantly, and a little less so on a motorcycle, but they present some unique challenges when you carry.
Yeah, what you're gonna want is you want a really tight fitting holster, and some people will carry on their waist still, but that's I did the other day when I was riding my mountain bike, and it's kind of uncomfortable, though I was using a full size gun. But they sell what they call, there's lots of different names, but they sell what they call belly bands, and they're essentially it's a big, oh, I think they've come a long ways now, but they're a big it's like a big piece of elastic, okay, to put it simply, and it's got Velcro on it, and you can pull it around your midsection, raise it high, lower it down, wherever you want. And they've got a pocket in there for a gun, maybe even another pocket for a magazine. Now, something like that, you're not going to want to put a full size duty style handgun in. It's obviously going to be too heavy, and it's going to flop around and stick out and stuff. It's not going to support itself. So you're going to want a smaller firearm of some kind. That's where a small gun comes into play, one that's not as heavy, one that's maybe a single stack, so it's not as thick, and a holster, that belly band fits you well. It's going to hold it against your body and not allow it to flop around while you're running or pedaling.
We wanted to point out too, as well, for people who have other types of activities. If you go to the gym, you probably don't want to carry it around with you in the gym.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not a good idea. I obviously don't wear one when I CrossFit. I'm usually laying on the floor, dying because I can't get enough oxygen anyway. But you don't want to carry one around when you're doing CrossFit or maybe you're lifting weights. That might be going a little too far. If you feel like you've got to carry when you're lifting weights at your at the local gym, you probably need to find a different gym.
Yeah, and how about people when you mentioned Durkee's Lake, if they're swimming this summer, obviously you can't take it into the water.
No, you don't want to take it into the water. Now, leave it locked up in your car, leave it somewhere. You don't leave it in a bag on your towel. Okay, that's no one's. There's lots of kids running around down there. Be responsible with it. Just be responsible and know what you're doing.
And the other thing that came across somebody I was just chatting with recently, what if you're in a situation where you encountered someone in a road rage situation and they come at you with a club or a tire iron or something like that? Can you match that with your pistol, or would you be able to match it with a shotgun, some way of self-defense?
Yeah, but let me ask you this, and this is what a lot of people forget. I mean, and every situation is different. So you're driving down the road, someone, someone thinks you cut them off, or they cut you off. They slam on their brakes. You stop for a second, or whatever it is. They get out. They're coming at you. Are you still sitting in your vehicle? Locked. Make sure your doors are locked. Make sure your doors are locked. And can you press on the gas pedal? Can you get out of there? Sometimes a car is your best weapon or
Hmm.
best form of escape. I mean, you're sitting in a 3,000-pound bullet right there. Sometimes that's easier if you can, stay locked up in there, drive away, use your car as a weapon. But if there's no other way and you have a firearm with you and someone's coming at you with a tire iron and you need to protect yourself, you do what you have to do. And if you have a firearm, that's good. Um, but carrying a gun should, I don't know who caused the road rage incident, but someone carrying a firearm should be, responsible. Should be watch out for situations like that. Should be more polite. Okay, you don't want to put yourself into road rage type situations. You want to put yourself into a situation where you might have to use your firearm. Avoid them at all costs.
If you know, I think sometimes if someone's following you after one of these, if you know where there's a police station or a barracks for state police, drive there.
Well, yeah, call law enforcement though. Call, say this is what's happening. This person, I think this person is following me. This is where we're at. This is what I'm driving. He's behind me. This is what the car is. And and I'm maybe going out on a limb here, but I'm almost 100% sure that law enforcement will say, okay, we've got someone in the area. Just keep driving, keep us posted. We'll get someone there, and someone will show up and pull you over, pull them over, and kind of. If you're scared, call law enforcement. That's what they're there for.
We wanted to point out we're going to take a short break. Todd Eccles is joining us from Patriot Defense this morning. We're at 9:19 and it's 61. Todd, what's the contact information again?
You can call me and text me, area code 620-794-6223.
We've got more with Todd Eccles on the way and more of your telephone calls too as well. Bill Colley with you this morning. And just a quick note, we're at 62 on our way into the low 80s today. So it'll be the warmest day we've probably seen since, I don't know, Halloween, if not sometime in September. And we wanted to point out too as well, the weather looks great. Cooler over the weekend, but not nasty. A little cooler over the weekend and then back into the mid 70s next week. The weather is a service of Mountain Home Auto Ranch. Chariots of Fire, and I guess in this case it's related to firearms.
Works for me.
Todd Eccles is in the studio with us this morning. Bill Colley with you as well. On Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. If you'd like to reach the show, got a question or comment about firearms and firearms safety, feel free to give us a call. And I did want to mention our friends Waddell and Reed today, if I could, during the course of the show. An investment firm that's been, well, in this business now of investing money for 80 years. One of the oldest firms in the country offering mutual funds. Waddell and Reed owns and manages two mutual fund families, investing by a conservative nature. And if you wonder if they know what they're doing, again, 8 decades of doing it. And what they'll do is they'll work with you because they know that each and every one of you is an individual with individual needs and goals, building proper expectations. But Waddell and Reed also helps you manage the money, and Waddell and Reed takes planning personally. Todd, I was going to point out a story that I saw the other day online, and I posted it to Facebook. And if I printed it, I can't find it right now.
Okay.
But there's a lot of discussion going on in media about the number of permits that are being issued. And one media story, I think it commented that they sort of dipped in April and things have been going downward because, as it turns out, if you're buying a firearm or you're buying 10, when you go into the store, they're only doing one background check on you.
Right.
And so somebody did a little looking into this, and sometimes people are going in now and buying 2 or 3 things at once. So the number of background checks is only actually down slightly, we should point out too. But people are buying much more in the way of firepower. I guess we should put it that way.
Right. So they're buying 3 instead of 1 when they go. And you know that from a married guy's perspective, it's a lot easier to get permission one time than it is 3 separate times. So, no, that happens quite a bit. I've been at a gun store and see people go in and do that. When when you buy a firearm, you should almost look at it. I've talked about this before as a package deal. And buy a firearm, you buy the ammo, you buy some magazines, you buy a holster, a kind of a package deal. Well, now that they actually have firearms where they've had them out for quite a while, but I've got one that I love to carry. It's my HK VP9, and it's pretty much a full size handgun. Well, they're coming out with I want to say the little brother to it. It's the HK VP9 SK or subcompact. Essentially, almost the same gun, just smaller, easier for carry. So, but a lot of times they'll bring out these guns. They'll bring out the whole lineup and be the full size, the subcompact, and the this over here. And you need a gun for different situations. Maybe a full size to shoot at the range, a subcompact to carry, a small one if you're going to run, if you're going to ride your mountain bike, or you're going to go hiking, whatever it might be. So if you're going in there, you might as well buy 2 or 3 at one time. Just get them all.
And there are certain models. Some might have a long barrel and some have a
Sure.
shorter barrel. And they're gonna feel the same in your grip,
Uh huh.
but for different reasons. Obviously, you sometimes need the shorter versus the longer barrel.
Well, yeah, and what happens too is I will say shorter barreled guns sometimes can be a little harder to shoot, little harder to gain accuracy with them. So buy that one to carry and buy a bigger one to practice with and train with it. And when you get that mastered, then you can go to the little small one. You can shoot it. You can get better at shooting it, more accurate with it. So you got one to go back and forth on. Does that make sense?
We were talking a couple of weeks ago off air about the Smith and Wesson M&P,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get that, I believe, with like a 4.5 inch barrel on it, but you can
Yeah.
actually buy something with a shorter barrel. And the idea is in certain situations, obviously, one's going to be easier to carry. They're not heavy by any means, even the larger ones, but
Right.
still, you have a couple of options there. And when it comes to your holster, so if you buy the right holster, it might actually accommodate both. I mean, you could.
Yeah, there's some holsters that will accommodate both firearms because they're essentially the same firearm. They just a lot of them have shorter or longer grips,
Mhm.
if that makes any sense. Um, you mentioned Smith and Wesson. I mean, they've got their like 4-inch barrel one, and they got the Shield, which is smaller, and then they have what they call their M&P Core, which is their competition style gun. So there's 3 different levels, 3 different versions right there. Now, I've always been under the assumption, and I could see where a smaller gun is going to be a little lighter. I understand that, and that's probably why I'm going to end up carrying one for certain when I do certain things. I never thought I'd say that, but because typically my thoughts were, if you carry a full size gun and you're going to carry it in a holster, if the barrel's longer, who cares? Because that's usually being shoved down your waistband. It's harder to hide the grip than it is anything else. That was what I thought when I started, but it changes when you start to do different activities. You need different firearms. Shorter barrels are a lot nicer. Like I said, I can't have a 1 pound gun flopping up here on my chest when I'm riding my bike when I could have with the single stack 45 that's a lot more compact. That's not going to do so. But there's lots of different firearms out there, and in my mind, there's a need for every one of them.
Yes. Talked about that earlier with the long guns,
Yeah.
etc. And yesterday I was watching an episode of the TV show The Americans, and one of the main characters is a secretary for the FBI, and she's learning to train. I talked about this character on the show a couple of weeks ago where they
Right.
told her take off your glasses and
Right.
just looked at the sights, not at the target. And but she in the TV show she has a revolver she keeps in a drawer in her kitchen,
Mhm.
just a little 6-shot revolver. And the idea being in probably an urban setting, that would be a lot more. If well, of course, in the day in Washington, you couldn't carry that at all. But
Right.
in an urban setting, it is probably better protection than sometimes even a longer barrel pistol.
Is more concealable. You could drop it into a pocket easier, that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with revolvers. I've got a revolver. I like to shoot it. It's okay. It's not what I'd go with, but I've seen a lot of people come through my class with revolvers, and they can shoot the heck out of them. And if you can shoot one and you're comfortable with it, you know, I will say this: semi-automatics can jam up. Okay, that does occasionally happen. Most of them are pretty good that they don't. But a revolver, even though you only have 5, 6 rounds in a revolver, you pull that trigger, it's gonna turn the cylinder and it's gonna go bang. If it doesn't go bang, know what you do? You just pull the trigger again.
I don't get the impression as well that there's a lot of recoil with most revolvers.
Uh, Depends on the revolver. If you get a little snub nose, I've seen them jump, and they'll jump pretty good. And depending on who's shooting them, they'll jump really good. So you just have to be aware of that. So I have people come in. Some people were just born; they're raised shooting revolvers, and so they're great at shooting revolvers. I have some people that have gone out and they have these ultralight revolvers now, and they grab one of those in a 38 special or something like that, and they're jumpy. They jump around, and if you're not used to it, you're gonna have trouble with it.
In the old movies, they grab the Colt 45s and they would ride with the reins in their mouths and then of course, and then they'd lift their hand up each time. Now there's no recoil going on there, but for some reason,
Yeah.
and they're not actually aiming; they're just sort of firing in a general direction.
One of the most fun guns I shot, revolvers that I shot was a Smith and Wesson, and it was a 38 special, but it was in a 44 frame, and that thing was awesome to shoot because it didn't move. It was like shooting a 22, but you're shooting a 38 special round. It was fantastic.
9:30. Todd Eccles joining us from Patriot Defense here on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. Bill Colley with you as well. We're here until 10 o'clock. Todd Eccles and I were just talking about some videos that are making the rounds. We don't want to be political in this segment, but videos that are making the rounds of some people out there who are a little extremist in their political views, who've been training in the desert to try to learn the use of firearms. It's 62 and it's 9:34, and Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com. And then he shared with me another story, a video going around of a guy who tried to rob a Jimmy John's somewhere Kansas, I guess you
I
mentioned.
think it was Kansas, yeah.
And as Todd said, this guy never took my course. Tell people what he did.
Well, he never took my course. We're going to start with that disclaimer, or he would know better. Not that I'm training criminals by any means, but he drew his firearm and he didn't have a round chambered, and so he kind of held it close to him. He went to chamber a round, and when he racked the slide back and he let go of it, he didn't let go of it. He pulled it back, kept his hand on it, and kind of, we call it riding the slide home, kind of eased it forward, which jammed the gun, that's what happens when you do it improperly. The gun jammed, so the slide was back by probably half an inch to an inch. So the gun is out of battery, and he doesn't even notice it. He pulls it up and aims it at the guy running the cash, the telling, the cash register, and is demanding money. And the guy is like giving him the money, but you can tell the guy's not even scared. So I think the guy looked at the gun and went, okay, yeah, well, it'll never go bang. But he was pointing that gun around at everybody. The thing's out of battery, jammed with a shell sticking out of it. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
And it shows you that there are people out there who are dangerous in the sense because they don't know what they're doing. Now, in that case, nobody could get hurt because of what he did. But sometimes this carelessness can have a really bad result too.
Yeah, you need to know what you're doing, and if you come in, if you get a good class, my class is what I'm going to push. Obviously, you're going to learn how to chamber around. You're going to learn how to let the gun and the slide do all the work. You're gonna learn how to make so that gun doesn't jam up. In fact, I'm going to encourage you that when you carry a firearm, to carry with a round already chambered. There was another video that made its rounds a while back of a guy was in, I think he owned some jewelry store or something, and he was in there with his son, and some people broke in, and the guy was doing everything that he needed to be doing. He already had a gun drawn on him, so he didn't try to draw his yet. He turned around to get something for the bad guys, and he saw that they looked away, so he drew his firearm, and he would have been one up on him, and he probably would have protected himself and his son, but he didn't have a round chambered. So as he drew his firearm, he had to try to chamber around. He lost time. Gun jammed. They shot him, and he's trying to hand the gun to his son, and they shot his son. So he wasn't prepared. He wasn't carrying with a round chambered. He wasn't doing it correctly, in my mind, which I think a lot of people will agree with me. And he didn't have the training that he needed to have, and bad things happened.
And we need to point that out. The idea is to have not only the magazine filled, but also that additional round in the chamber.
Yes, to have that round chambered, because seconds count, and You need to be able to draw that firearm one-handed and not worry about chambering around. Under excitement, under stress, okay, under extreme stress, you may short stroke it and jam the gun. Or let's say I'm carrying that baby carrier in Walmart with my, newly born son in it. Okay, I carry that with my left hand. Am I going to set that baby carrier down or let go of my 3-year-old son's hand so I can draw my firearm and use both hands to chamber around, or do I want to be able to hold on to my son's hand, hold on to that baby carrier, draw that firearm out, and know that it's ready to go right then and there?
We wanted to point out, too, as well, if you've got a question or comment today, feel free to call us at 736-0300, 736-0300. But we should point out on a bigger note that there are probably more and more reasons that people should be prepared, because we discussed off air. There's this organization of people that call themselves the Resistance, and they've been the people smashing windows and burning and looting in Portland and California and various places. And they themselves apparently are getting trained as well, because they seem to believe that they're going to bring on some sort of civil war or some strife in the streets, and people, for their own safety, we've seen what they'll do to private property. For their own safety, people should be ready.
Well, yeah, and you should be ready for them and just for anything. But yeah, you don't know where you're going to be, where that could happen. I mean, I don't know if there's any, I would imagine somewhere nearby there's, little strands of those groups or people that believe like they do. So maybe they're going to start something at a mall somewhere. Maybe they're going to start something at a big public event somewhere. You just don't know. I mean, I think there was a story a while back. I never did read the story. I just saw the headline of a group of people, kids that went onto a subway. Did you catch that one?
Oakland,
Yeah,
California.
and just
Yeah.
robbed and beat up everybody. I mean, you don't know when that's going to happen. You need to be protected. You need to be prepared. You need to have the knowledge, have the education.
These people have already scoped out a train like that.
Right.
So they know that, but they don't know who might be carrying in that situation.
If you're doing it right, they don't know who's carrying because you're carrying concealed and you're doing it good, and that's what you want. You want to have the jump on them. You want to have the upper hand. You want to be able to make that decision whether or not you engage or not. So if no one knows it's there and everything's going well, and you have the opportunity to use it to save your life or save the lives of someone else, go for it.
We've got more coming up with Todd Echols from Patriot Defense in just a couple of minutes at 61. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. Our studio guest, Todd Echols from Patriot Defense. We're talking firearms and firearm safety today on the air. On Top Story as well with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. I'm going to invite some phone calls, but Todd has to tell us about something coming up in just a moment. Telephone number, though, if you would like to reach our program today, and all things firearms, obviously, this hour. Telephone number is 736-0300. That's 736-0300. You know a lot of people, obviously, in the community who either deal in firearms or are involved in training, are involved in safety issues, but you wanted to bring something up this morning.
Yeah, it's kind of an exciting time for Patriot Defense here. I got my range. My range is dug. A person could go and shoot at I could start using my range for my classes right now. So I'm fine. But anyhow, big things are happening. A couple friends of mine opened a gun store up in Filer. It's called Brother in Arms Firearms, and I've been doing some chatting with them. And been getting some phone calls about having just a basic firearms class, basic firearms knowledge class for the beginner, or someone who just wants to brush up. And so we're putting together a class. It'll probably be about an hour long. And we haven't got any dates set yet, but that'll happen real soon. In fact, I'm headed over there today to chat with them. But it's going to be a basic safety class. Here's a shotgun, here are the parts. Here's a rifle, here's the parts. Here's a handgun, here's the parts. It's a non-shooting class, but hopefully here's how you work the action on a handgun. Here's how you work the action on a rifle. Here's how you work an action on a shotgun. That kind of thing. Just basic. Be a great one for beginners. For kids. So they aren't, they don't get curious. They can learn about them. For women, for just for anybody. And we're going to have these classes. And like I said, you can get a hold of them. Go see them. Brother in Arms Firearms. They're at 310 Main Street in Filer. They've got a phone number. It's 208-591-GUNS.
Yeah.
So that's 208-591-GUNS. You can go to their website. It's BIA-firearms.com, and go to their events tab. And when we get those up and running or get those scheduled out, should be in the next few days. You can go down there, talk to them. They'll get you signed up, all that good stuff. But it's kind of exciting. I've been talking to another a guy of mine that's going to help me out with some other classes. He's putting together a curriculum for like a next step class over my permit class, like a intermediate handgun, type class. He's putting together that, and even like a more of an advanced type class, and he should be getting me that information here in the next week or so. We're going to put something together and hopefully have something for June.
And we wanted to mention as well, if you'd like to reach Todd, the last, maybe not quite 15 minutes today, 736-0300. That's 736-0300. And you may have a question or comment. Remember, over the course of the next several weeks, he's got 3 classes coming up. So there's options for people.
Yeah, and I got classes on May 20th, June 10th, and June 17th. And also at this Brother in Arms Firearms store, if you take my class, any of my classes, and we give you a certificate of completion, if you take that down to their store and show them that, it depends on how much money you spend there, but they'll take a different percentage. I think there's 3 different levels. They'll take a different percentage off of 3 different amounts of money that you spend at their store, so it'll get you a little bit discount on a firearm too. That'd be fantastic.
And we wanted to point out as well, for people who'd like to know more about Patriot Defense, a lot of places they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Facebook under Patriot Defense. Like the page, shoot me a message. You can call or text me. Area code 620-794-6223. It's area code 620-794-6223. Those are probably the 2 easiest spots to get a hold of me at. Also, look for my podcasts. Trying to get better at them. It's a long road, but I'll get there. But you can take a look, listen to those. Find those on iTunes under Patriot Defense Podcast, on YouTube under Patriot Defense Podcast, and I also post those on my Facebook page when I put them up.
I made all these references to the TV show The Americans. So I'm watching an episode of it the other day, and they're trying to find a spy who's going by the alias of Clark Westervelt. So they look up all the Clark Westervelts in the United States, and they find one in Atlanta, Georgia. They think that could be him. And then they dismiss the other one they find because the show's set in the 1980s. The other one owns a firearms store in Haley, Idaho, as they said on the show.
Oh, there you go.
And I thought, now, even in Haley, people joke about how liberal it is in that part of Idaho. But it's just like my trip last year when I went over and spent a 4-day weekend in Jackson Hole. There's a big firearms store in Jackson Hole because you are still in the middle of a wide area where this is a popular sport.
Well, exactly, and you get up there. There's lots of people like to hike, and so they might want to take their firearms with them. But I know there's a little shooting culture up there as well. Maybe not necessarily strong in the concealed carry. I mean, I don't know. I might be misspoken, but there's a lot of like trap and skeet type ranges up there. I know they put on a lot of NRA classes up there, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's all around us. We do live in Idaho, and as much as maybe we like to pick on the liberals a little bit, the liberals like to shoot too. They have, they do. I know, liberals that do carry firearms. They do conceal carry, that type of thing. And just because you're liberal doesn't mean you're 100% against everything that we believe in, obviously.
Right, right. In fact, a lot of people just say, hey, for home defense, this is not a bad idea.
Right, and
especially if you live out in the country or somewhere where late at night, you don't know who might be out and around.
well, exactly. And up there, I mean, you got even four-legged critters up there. I mean, bears, wolves, whatever it might be. So you got to protect yourself. And depending on where you live up there, if you live far enough out, it might take a little while for help to arrive if you need something.
I do know they have a gun club in Ketchup.
Yeah.
I haven't been there, but I've been by it.
Yeah, and I believe I haven't actually been there either. I've driven by they got a gun club. They have a nice like trap and skeet range up there as well. And then there's one like a little trap and skeet field or trap field anyway, right there on the main highway as you're coming into town there as well. So there's probably other places up there that you can shoot as well.
And I think for a lot of people out there, we talk quite a bit about the club in Jerome that people attend locally, but we don't get into a lot of depth about this. Look, I've been here 2.5 years. I don't know where everything is yet.
Yeah.
But just about every county has someplace where someone can go and they can just keep proficient with what they're doing.
Well, yeah, and at the very least, we live in the middle of a desert. So you can go out in the desert and shoot. You can go out in the hills and shoot if it's public ground. Obviously, make sure you're not, trespassing anywhere. And if you go out, pick up your garbage. If you haul out a milk jug to shoot at, pick up your milk jug when you're done. If you stick some targets out there, pick up your paper targets. Even pick up your brass. If you don't, let me know where you left it, and I will go pick it up because I want to use the brass to reload. But don't take your TVs out there and shoot at them. There's so much better things to shoot at. Haul that on your way to go shooting. Haul that old TV, drop it off at the transfer station, and then go out and go shoot. Don't shoot at the TV and leave it out there. What a mess.
I can remember as kids, we used to just collect the brass in a lot of places because so many people would leave it behind.
I used to I used to have a route a few years ago that I'd run, and his son's 11. My oldest son is 11 now, but when he was younger, that's how he learned his numbers. That's how he learned to read. He'd read the back of brass. And so I had weird days off in the middle of the week. We'd get up early in the morning and we'd go hit all the local shooting areas. And we'd just drive through with buckets and just pick up brass. And then he would separate it. And he could walk through a shooting area and just look at the ground and go 40, 9, 45. And then he would go home and I'd make him separate it and count it. My big rule was he wasn't to lick his fingers while he was doing so.
Yes. Wouldn't taste good anyway.
No, that's the part of reloading I hated doing was separating all that. But he did it and he loved it.
And we wanted to point out, now that you have a range of your own, for people who are there, you have obviously an ability, because it's a private range, to sort of clean up on your own and take care of all of that. And
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about having someone come in and monitor all of this.
Well, I'm the monitor, and I'm going to jump back just a minute because I've got this question 2 or 3 times, and it's fine because all I've been talking about is this range that I'm building. Okay, this isn't a public range. I'm going to use this for my personal use, and I'm going to use this for my classes. This is not something that you can call me up and say, "Hey, I'm in town. I need a place to shoot. How much is it to shoot at your range?" I can't do that. There's just a lot of liability, a lot more stuff going on there. I mean, my house is right there. I just can't do that. It's got to be very, very, very controlled. So I'm sorry. It's not a place for necessarily the public to go and shoot on the weekends. Just I've actually got more phone calls and questions about that than I thought I would. But it's a nice range. I'm going to get some trees planted, some grass planted. I'm having some gravel brought in. So I told my wife, not that it is going to happen. I told my wife that if everything just goes to heck in a handbasket, at the very least, I got a place to shoot out of this.
We talk a little bit about this. Brass itself is not really much of a pollutant, being that it's metal. As I understand it, the White House has relaxed some of the rules, though. That you had people, and you want to talk about crazy, that claimed that lead. They were trying to basically eliminate hunting in many parts of the country. That lead was going to poison animals. The claim was that deer and the like would be gobbling up lead, and I don't know that they have a taste for it. But it appears the government has relaxed some of that, what we might call kooky approach to all of that.
Well, right, and I think that the main thing that they were worried about was waterfowl because when you're hunting waterfowl with like a shotgun, you're spraying out. I mean, just all a bunch of shot at one time. So maybe 2 pieces of shot hit the duck, hit the goose, it falls down and dies. Where's all the other shot going to go? It's going to go across the land. It's going to fall to the bottom of the river or the pond or whatever. And then they're afraid that they would eat it. Well, obviously, when you hunt waterfowl now, it's a federal law. You have to use steel shot. So that kind of eliminated that. And if you're proficient in what you're doing and you go out and you practice with your firearm, you talked about lead poisoning of animals. I don't ever take more than 2, maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 shots a year at a deer, a season at a deer, and they're in the deer. Okay, that's where it ends up. And yes, that deer dies from lead poisoning, but he's the only one that dies from lead poisoning. So
we have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Hi, I have a question for you.
Sure.
We're always safety minded with these guns, and that's great. I'm all for it. Question for you. Do you use or would you recommend or not recommend what they call a trigger block? Now, on the Glocks that I bought from the Glock store, the little trigger block fits right behind the trigger and the frame, or the trigger guard. Now, is that advisable for everyday carry, or would that get in your way if you had an instance where you'd have to pull out your gun and fire fast?
Okay, I'm trying to think. I would think it would get in the way. Now, I'm trying to envision exactly what it is.
It's a little piece of plastic.
It snaps over the trigger.
Yeah, it doesn't snap. It just kind of fits in kind of tight.
And so when you draw your firearm, is this the one that's meant to pull out of the way?
No, you got it. Flip it with your finger.
Yeah, no, I would stay away from that. I would stay away from that just because if you get a decent holster, you draw that firearm, you're ready to go. This is something small, and so when you're under stress, you have like fine muscle movements are hard to do, or you're already messing around there by the trigger. So if you're popping that out, something bad happens, you get your finger in the wrong spot, you get it popped out, you pull the trigger at the wrong time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, is there ones that come out automatically?
There is, and I don't have any experience with them, but they do make a little thing that snaps over the trigger. It's like a piece of Kydex, and it's tied to like a deal. So when you draw it, you tie it like onto your belt loop or whatever. When you draw your firearm, or however you're carrying it out of your pocket or whatever, then that snaps off. I don't even really like that. I would just rather have a holster. A good holster that I know is going to stay behind. That's covering everything. I mean, I like like you said, safety, safety, safety. I've never had a problem getting my gun out of a decent holster in a decent amount of time. And if you look at all the people that compete and do this, they don't. As long as you practice, that's the way to go. A good holster, in my mind.
It's wonderful. Like I said at the beginning of my conversation, we're always safety, safety, safety.
Sure.
But there's a point in time when safety becomes a hindrance, and that point in time where those two meet is what we're always striving for: safety, but yet being able to function when you need to function.
No, and I understand exactly what you're getting at, and you just have to try to overcome that and do the best you can with it. And I find a good holster is the best way to deal with what we're talking, and then you always try to keep your finger off the trigger. That's why I don't really like that trigger block idea, because you're jamming your finger in there trying to pop that thing out however it is, and you may bump that trigger just wrong. But yeah, I know you're right. Some people don't carry with a round chamber because it's safety, safety, safety. Well, you got to be safe on the fact you got to keep your finger off the trigger and have a proper holster. Then you can carry with a round chamber without fear of that gun going. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I know exactly where you're coming from.
So some of these holsters that I've tried for my baby Glock are tight, really tight, and so I like the circle locking one holster because it comes out quick and smooth, and you got to train your finger, imprint yourself to train that finger to when it pulls that weapon out of that holster that it slides through that lock button and opens it up.
Yeah, hey, shoot me a message and we'll continue this, but it sounds like we probably got to go.
Yeah, or check back in a week too.
Yeah, and I got some information for you.
Yeah, and Todd Eccles, one other time, contact information.
Call me, text me, area code 620-794-6223. I got 3 classes, one on May 20th, one on June 10th, one on June 17th.
That wraps it up for the week here on Top Story. Bill Colley saying, come Monday morning between 8 and 10 o'clock. Well, God willing, if the creek don't rise, I'll be back. And Rush Limbaugh's program is scheduled next following the news at 10 o'clock.